call the meeting to order at 6:31 p.m. I want to thank everybody for coming here tonight because you're all on the agenda. That's awesome. Are you on the agenda, Steve? No. And Steve Lemke. I also would like to point out just that on the sign-in sheet are the rules of procedure for this meeting in case anybody has any questions about things. Are there any additions to the agenda for this evening? Seeing none, we'll move to any changes to the agenda order tonight. So the next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of March 28th.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, maybe we'll be done at 6:43. The next item on the agenda is the dog officer appointment.
You're not that good yet.
I'm going to make a motion to appoint Marianne Lawrence as the dog officer and to carry out duties as required by the town's dog ordinance and in accordance with pertinent state statutes, and to dissolve the assistant dog officer position.
Could we change, rephrase that to pound keeper? That's her official title, is the pound keeper. It covers all of that stuff you just said.
No, because I think pound keeper's narrower.
It is.
Dog officer's broader. She is, and she always has been the pound keeper. But dog officer actually has broader duties.
Not the book I read, but.
And I think we need to keep it consistent with our ordinance.
Yeah.
Oh, that makes sense.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Dick, any opposed?
Yeah, no.
I'm sorry, are you opposed?
No, I'm not gonna oppose.
You're in favor?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. We have the next item on the agenda is the Recreation Commission appointments.
I will make a motion to appoint the following individuals to the Recreation Commission. Taz Schreck, Chris LaFlamme, Tim Harris, Wendy Stone, Eric Jones, and Lisa Ford. And there's one seat left to be appointed, so if anybody is interested, let us know.
Is there a second? Are they gonna work out the terms among themselves?
Yep, I'll work with them on that.
Okay. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? Thank you. The next item is the issue of who the board liaison to the Algiers Fire District and the Guilford Volunteer Fire District.
I'd like to nominate Gabby.
Nominate me for all sorts of things. I'm going to have to...
You have the attorney outlook on that.
I do, and I'm happy to help with that, but given the number of commissions that I'm already liaison to,
Yeah.
I think that it needs to be a little bit... I don't think I could handle any more commissions and liaisons.
Oh, come
You're
on.
going to give me everything.
You turn them all down, so it doesn't.
I think that Katie and I could volunteer to do that. Katie's got a lot of experience with that, and unless somebody else is interested in serving Troy or Gordon.
At this point, I think I will wait to feel my way a little bit before I jump onto that. So, no, I think that's a great recommendation.
We don't need to move, we just, because we had liaisons for the other, this was just left off the meeting before. All right, moving on to new business, we have Glenn Herrin, our RERP coordinator, here to give us, excuse me, an update on what's happening with the Vermont Yankee.
Should I stand here or?
Yeah, if that's good for you.
Hello, obviously I'm not Dave Emery, or if you know Dave Emery, I'm not Dave Emery. Dave's the coordinator for the program. I'm the trainer and planner for the program, and I could make it tonight and Dave could not. So I think you all have these sheets. Good.
Yep.
And so the first thing I'd like to go through is just what's going to happen next week. As of the 18th, The 18th of April, Vermont Yankee is changing its emergency plan in accordance with what the Nuclear Regulatory Commission has said, and therefore the state is modifying their plan because Vermont Yankee is changing what they're doing. So probably the most significant thing that people will see on the outside is Vermont Yankee doesn't plan for emergencies anymore. And now I will say up front, that's not to say that nothing bad can happen. It just means that it takes a long time and a lot of bad things have to happen before it gets to a really horrible level. So what happens is you get an unusual event, which is something very minor, like an earthquake in Montreal that registers on the instruments. It doesn't have any safety impact. In that case, there's no protective action and there's no public notification. What happens is your emergency management director will get notified. He'd probably tell you, and that's the end of it. Alert is the most serious thing that Yankee plans for. And in that case, at the state level, we would do things like possibly do an early assembly of buses, Vermont state of emergency. And then we look at Vernon, because Vernon's right there where the plant is, moving out the school children from the school. And if there's some kind of hostile action going on around the plant, we might tell Vernon to shelter in place. We'd be issuing press releases and sending out Vermont alert messages saying what's going on at the plant so that everybody would know what was going on. And that's about as far as the plant plans for. Because at that point, in order for something bad to happen, people have to not do anything about whatever bad is happening for like a week. It's very long times that it takes for something horrible to happen to the fuel that's in the spent fuel pool. Again, it's not that nothing can happen. It's just that nothing has to happen for in excess of a week for the water in the spent fuel pool to boil off or the fuel to get hot enough to generate a plume or something. That said, the state is still planning for escalation beyond alert. And that's when we get into all the stuff that we've been planning for the last 20 years, clearing parks and waterways, doing shelter in place outside of Vernon, eventually possibly leading to an evacuation. And we would be using the Vermont alert system and the emergency alert system and all that for those things. So all that stuff is still possible. It's just that it takes a lot longer to develop. Where it used to be that this kind of thing could happen like in an hour, now it's on the order of a week. And that gives us plenty of time to say, hey, ISIS is taking over the plant. Hey, they're still at the plant. Oh my God, they've got the reactor building. The National Guard attacked and we're beaten back or something. I mean, there's just a lot of bad things have to happen without being successful in fixing whatever the problem is.
Can I just ask a quick
Sure.
question? The escalation beyond alert, that list, does it apply to just Vernon or does it apply to?
It's actually literally anywhere in the state,
Okay.
which could include Westminster or Putney or whatever. But realistically, we're still planning for the 6 what are about to be former EPZ emergency planning zone towns. So for Guilford, we've just gone through rewriting the emergency plan, and so there is still a plan that your emergency management director has for how to tell people to shelter in place, how to evacuate, what routes to use, how to call the state to get transportation if you need it, where to send the kids that go to the school,
Right there.
whatever there. That stuff is all going to remain in place. Things that are about to change are down at the bottom. So the emergency planning zone is about to change from the 6 towns listed to just the site boundary as far as the NRC is concerned. The reception center, we're not going to have a reception center anymore. Instead, if we do need to evacuate, there's plenty of time. So we tell people to evacuate before anybody gets contaminated, and the Red Cross would set up congregate care facilities. Actually, those are already set up. So we would say everybody from Guilford go to Randolph Union High School, or whatever the shelter is. I don't know that that's where it is, but the Red Cross has them. Radiological survey teams, where right now they're all focused on going to Vermont Yankee, where the equipment's going to stay down here, but it's going to be planned for a statewide response. So they would, if there's an accident around 91 with somebody that's transshipping radioactive isotopes, they're going to be planning for that kind of thing as well as Vermont Yankee. The state drills, we're going from monthly radio checks and quarterly drills to a biennial cycle. That may change, but that's the current plan, is where 1 year we'll do a workshop and 1 year we'll do an exercise. For equipment, right now your EOC has telephones, radios, generator, computers. You've got dosimetry, which are the things that you use to measure how much of a radioactive dose somebody gets. And we're actually gonna have to pull that back because we can't keep it calibrated because we don't have the money to do it. So we'll have it at the state level, and if you need it, your radiological officer will ask for it, and we'll get it for you. So all that you'll have as a town is whatever you maintain in your EOC. So hopefully that's still, telephones, radios, generator, some kind of computers maybe, but it's up to you. That's what I'll talk about in a few minutes. Training goes from required to recommended, so it's whatever training you want to keep doing. Potassium iodide is already not needed, but it becomes really not needed now. If you have it, keep it. The Department of Health wants you to hang on to it just in case, but it's very much like, if you have an oil furnace and for some reason you have some kind of safety equipment for the oil, like a special fire extinguisher for that, and then you get rid of the oil furnace and you keep the fire extinguisher just because, even though you don't need that's. KI is for radioactive iodine. There is like almost no radioactive iodine left in the plant. So even if somebody literally dropped a nuclear bomb on the plant, you really wouldn't need the KI. So
You made it for the nuclear bomb.
no, it's a different kind of radioactive. That's the thing. So it's
Gone.
They're
all gone.
Today's weather
It's
lotion.
a new and improved nuclear bomb.
yeah. There's still bad stuff there. It's not radioactive iodine. And then, of course, the bottom line is probably what you're worried about, the bottom line. Right now, the emergency planning zone towns are getting about $32,000 a year in funding, and that is about to drop to a question mark. The hope at the state level is that we will continue to fund all of the EPZ towns at some level. In New Hampshire, they've worked a deal with Vermont Yankee where they're going to some kind of flat sliding scale down where over 4 years the towns will go from whatever they get now, which I think is like $5,000 to $1,000 over 4 years. So having said that,
Over 4 years,
over 4 years, yes.
so
But
$250 a year.
well, so it would be like this year they might get $5,000, next year 4, next year 3,
I see. Okay.
something like that.
Yes.
Again, while that's the state hope, and I'm not involved in negotiations, we don't know, and it's quite possible that Vermont Yankee will just tell us, sorry, you're not getting anything. And that's, again, I don't think it will come to nothing, but you might as well plan for nothing, because that's the only figure we can realistically give you at this point. So that's the big red thing. Vermont's still negotiating. If the state does get money for the towns, it won't exactly be strings attached, but what we'll do is we'll say, okay, town, here's what we expect you to do. We do expect you to have, an emergency manager who's going to do these things, like conduct radio checks, conduct training, participate in exercises. And if you do those things, then we will give you whatever the figure is. So it'll be very similar to the grant agreement you have now, except for it's almost definitely going to be less than what you're getting now. So that's kind of the Vermont Yankee side. If you flip it over, then it talks about just Guilford, and this is a refinement on a general slide I have.
This is what?
This slide I built for you, which means that I went in and looked at whether you have a fire department or fire company. I did a few little minor tweaks, but this is a general slide that we actually use to talk to all kinds of towns,
Okay.
but the EPZ towns in particular. So once Vermont Yankee goes away and you stop getting funding, which is one of the assumptions here, your funding's about to drop in July. Presumably, the residents will still want to maintain a high level of readiness. Guilford actually has historically done great work. You've participated in all the exercises. I know you're signed up for Vigilant Guard, I think, this summer. So you've had a great experience preparing for disasters in the past, and I think that's paid off well for you. But realistically, your town resources are only going to support a smaller budget. So you need to figure out, what do you still want to do and what can you afford? The key roles in emergency management, that's kind of when you turn to Ron and say, you're the emergency management director, he's either responsible for all these things or he's the one that finds somebody else to do these things. And it's perfectly okay to split them out. These are what I've shown here are kind of the different hats. You need a director that's in charge, you need somebody that runs the EOC, you need somebody that does the training, somebody that does the coordinating, somebody that does all of your planning, and if you're in the Vermont Yankee area, you need somebody that does the radiological planning. And that can be 6 different people, or 3 different people, or one person. It's however you want to do it. A potential goal is to, and this is kind of what Guilford's done in the past, is to share out those duties so that you have a bunch of people, kind of a critical mass of people who are involved in emergency management. And that way, if Herb Meyer decides to retire, you got somebody else that can come in and is already familiar with the program to do that. So that's great, and I personally commend you for what you've been doing, and I hope Guilford keeps doing something like this in the past, keeps these duties alive. Then on the right side, though, you get into funding. So I think your town goal has to be reduce your budget as much as possible while continuing to fund the high-value, high-return items, starting when the radiological grant ends or drops. And so what you need to do, and I think you've already done, at least to some extent, is to sort your items into 4 categories. The stuff that you'll do because the RAD budget gives you money for it. The stuff that you as a town say, this is really important and we're going to do it no matter what. The stuff that you as a town say, well, we'd like to do this, and year by year, if we can afford to fund an exercise this year, we'll do it. If we can't, we won't. That kind of stuff. And then stuff that you just won't fund anymore. That's ultimately what it comes down to. From a training standpoint, I would hope you would want to continue to conduct training that will get you ready for any kind of emergency. The advantage of having Vermont Yankee for all these years is that you've gotten a lot of money to buy equipment and train people to get you ready for any kind of thing. But realistically, you're probably much more likely to face an ice storm or a flood than a Vermont Yankee. And it's good that the radiological funding has given you experience and equipment and training to do those things. But now you're not going to have as much of that or any of that anymore. So what you need to get to is, what do you still want to do? What kind of exercises do you want to do? This is kind of a rough recommendation. Planning workshops are pretty easy. They only take a couple hours. It doesn't necessarily involve much, either from a volunteer standpoint or a paid municipal employee standpoint. So you can do those every year and focus, 1 year on an ice storm, the next year on flooding, the next year on forest fire, then you go back and do ice storm again. Whatever your town priorities are. Tabletop exercises are pretty easy to do every couple of years. Community drill is nice if you can do it. If you tie it to something like the Guilford Fair or something like that, you could have the day before that, you could bring people together and do the fair setup as some kind of ICS exercise or something if you want. And then finally, full-scale exercises are nice. That's when you actually bring in your fire equipment and you get maybe the state to help and like overturn a vehicle and have somebody actually practice on real world stuff. That stuff gets expensive. Sometimes you can get grants for that. Sometimes you can't. But like I said, that stuff gets expensive. But the bottom line is ultimately, there in yellow, you need to balance your desired capabilities, which is, you're ready for everything, with the available resources, which is, probably starts at 0 and then works its way up, to support whatever your program will be that's going to suit your needs. And that's, every town is going to draw a different line there, and that's why you guys get elected to make those decisions. So that's my pitch. Sir?
Our last budget session, we basically did away with any financial money for the emergency management director and put it into what was called an emergency fund, which was established for a whole other reason. Would it be wise to reestablish a fund directly for the emergency management director?
Is that fund is it like a budget?
To do his necessities, yes.
Do you mean salary?
Pardon?
Do you mean salary? Or do you mean emergency fund? Because we have the fund for
The
the...
emergency fund was established for something totally different. The emergency fund was established after Irene to cover any type of emergency that came up. And we added to that, the emergency management director's money went into that. So it's still there. It didn't take it away from him.
It's
still
not a
there.
fund, it's just a line item in the budget.
Yeah, it's a line item in the budget.
It's not a reserve
But
fund.
it could be used up for about anything. So he doesn't have, the emergency management director doesn't have any money directly under his title of emergency management director.
Well, actually, Ron submitted a budget specific
He did.
to that amount of, so that
But
we
he
know
didn't
what
get
he's. He's got his $1,500, yes, he got,
Where is it?
it's in the
It's
line,
in the
it's
budget.
budgeted.
So-
It was in
It was approved in, the town meeting.
So I would say it's akin to a commission, like the Conservation Commission has X amount of money to do what they need to, their duties.
Yeah.
And that's what Ron has. He doesn't get a salary per se anymore, which is what I believe all of the RERP money was going towards.
No,
Or
no.
good,
22,000.
Yeah,
A big chunk.
big chunk of it.
Yeah, yeah.
So I don't think he has the salary anymore, nor do we have the funds to give Ron
No,
$15,000 in
what I'm trying
equipment.
to establish is that emergency fund.
You
Even
mean the
though
line item, the $1,500?
it's a line item, but it can be used up other places in emergency management director.
But you all decide that, and even
Yeah.
then, you still oversaw Ron's spending through the RERP
Yeah.
program, because it, ultimately, you still decide
Yeah.
and approve how that's spent, because you need select board approval on everything for the RERP
Yeah,
grant.
yeah.
So I don't see his money going to anything except for what it's been appropriated for.
I hope not.
I mean, that's
Yeah, I
sort of
hope
what our goal is with all the line items, right?
You haven't seen my Mercedes?
Mercedes.
So if I understand correctly, I think you've done kind of what you asked, sir, where the town needs to say on an annual basis, this is the emergency management budget, which is separate from a fund that gets used
Yeah.
after an Irene or something
Right.
like that. And you guys have to set that
Yeah,
amount.
but it's not under, but it's not under emergency management heading. It's over here and then.
It's
and-
called
and- and the
emergency
line item.
response.
Uh,
It's emergency response.
Yeah.
That's, what you call it is up to you. It's.
All right, I just wanted to clarify that.
How are
because-
how are you doing these things? Is the-
Yeah.
you know, what do you want your emergency
Yeah.
management director to do? What do you want your emergency management program to do? And then what are the resources they have to do that?
Okay.
I have a quick question, because you talk about we want to fund the most high value, high return items. So my question is sort of in your expert opinion, let's say we have, $5,000 to $1,000. What would you deem to be most high value, high return items? Like if you had to pick the top 2 or 3.
Well, so you have to look at where you're, like bottom line comes down to equipment and training.
Are the 2 sort of
Yeah,
pools?
and the equipment purchase, like you probably have a capital spending plan or something like that, so you probably have to do something like that. I don't know if it would come down to whatever the level is, like for computers and stuff like that. But you have equipment now that you have to figure out how much it costs to maintain. So maintaining the equipment that you want to keep is important. So like you might say, yeah, we absolutely need a phone in the fire station, and so you keep paying that bill. You might say, we have a state radio. That's nice, but we don't want to pay, there's actually very little cost of radio. But, you might say, well, the radio only gets used in this kind of thing, we don't want to use that. So you need to look at the maintenance for the equipment and communication costs, which are, when I was in town EMD, the communication costs were actually what ate up a lot of my budget. Phone bill, internet, that comes up to, I don't know if you know off the top of your head, but I mean, it
Ron,
comes
do you
out in
wanna-
hundreds of dollars.
$1,377.
Ron, did you want to speak to that?
Yes, I
Question?
would. So the $1,500, we will be using up $1,377.28, assuming that Comcast doesn't raise its bill and that the telephone company doesn't, and that's to maintain the one landline.
Mm-hmm.
So that would leave you $122.72, which would be maybe one drill, but it would not be participation in the emergency management conference that happens annually or anything else. And I understand that it is a budget, but boy, it would be nice to feel that there was something else there.
Mm-hmm.
The fire department will be taking over the internet.
I haven't talked to them about that.
I did.
So, does that mean that we will still have access to the internet?
It's no different than how we've had it before.
So, my question is, why are we putting it to the fire department and not leaving it as it is?
Because it will be in the fire department's budget. The fire department is required to have internet access, correct?
Yeah.
So if our EOC was not at the fire station, the fire department still has to have internet access.
Okay.
So it doesn't,
But-
it's there, it's there, you can use
It basically
it.
comes out of the same kitty though. The town budget pays for the fire department's finances.
But if the EOC were to somehow relocate here, they still need to have, that EOC is
It would
barely
still
gonna,
need that, right?
not gonna be used at the level that it was used before. So the natural assumption would be that that was one of the costs that they would take over, just like the cost of their generator, they're gonna have to take over the cost of their generator moving forward,
Which frees your funds up for the trainings.
more purely, rather than
So the only
subsidizing
thing I
other.
have then will be the telephone cost.
if,
The landline.
if you deem that the phone line is essential to keep there for the EOC, there's still a phone line that goes to the fire department.
I think it's essential, and the reason is because like, when Halifax and their EOC, they have some sort of arrangement that the town's lines become part of the EOC's lines in an emergency. We don't have that, to my knowledge. So,
Their EOC is really close to there.
it's in the
Yeah.
same building, is it not?
No, but it's like 2 buildings down.
Yeah, so they have the capability of switching all those phone lines over to having that used. For me, the reason I wanna keep it is that it's a redundancy of communication, because you never know what's gonna go out in the event of some god awful thing, you know, the cell towers may end up going out, so that line is gone. Or EMIs might get, so then the radio doesn't work.
So have you talked to the fire department about the idea of them maybe adding a line to their account versus having a whole separate account just for that phone? It might be more expensive to maintain a whole separate account, where if you just had a separate line under the fire department's bill.
I can ask them, it's about $26 a month.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a huge, the
Yeah.
internet's the real
Big.
cost, and
Yeah.
that's something that, I think that they're already gonna be absorbing into their,
Which
based
is
on my.
good, because it frees up
Yeah.
monies for your trainings, and
Right.
that's good.
So, and then, so anyway, I just,
So as I might say, so this is exactly, unfortunately, the kind of discussion you have to have now, where you don't necessarily need like a fax line. Marlboro had a fax line that we used to have, and I am reasonably certain they're cutting that off now, because who needs a separate fax line?
Yeah.
If, it's one thing if Vermont Yankees paying for it, it's another if Vermont or your town is paying for it. Probably shouldn't have said that. Ma'am,
So it looks like there's clearly a system in place by the state to alert everyone in the event of any alert or escalation beyond alert, and it seems to be tied to the Vermont alert system, which is you get a phone call, right? So it seems like the most important thing we can do as a community is make sure people are signed up for that.
yes, that's good, although the system actually calls landlines whether you're signed up or not.
Oh.
And Ron's already got that capability. But,
Awesome.
but the state has it, and Guilford's adopted it as well.
Okay, and then what's EAS?
That's the emergency alert system. That's Vermont Alert actually is part of that, but that's the, this is a test of the emergency alert system. That's the radio and the telephone
Okay,
systems.
so if we have a landline, we're gonna get the Vermont alert and or the EAS call,
And
no
if
matter
you
what.
signed up and you have if you've signed up and you've got a mobile phone or email or a pager or all my stuff, that's why we tell people to sign up, is because then you can give them all, you can give the state all of your contact information, and that way we're sure it gets through. Because there is a failure rate associated with the landlines where Fairpoint doesn't update the number or it just doesn't go through or something.
And I think the critical mass, to your point, is if we could support more and more people getting online on the emergency systems with all their emails and cell phones, I think that does a lot for our
It's been
Community.
an ongoing campaign of Ron's since
Well,
last
that's
summer.
Day one.
Yeah, and
I mean,
it's
to
not
me-
getting a lot of support.
That's where the rubber hits the road.
We're still not at 50%, and I sent a letter to every taxpayer in the town.
Yeah.
I'm signed up, Ron.
When I got my letter, I signed up. It must have been your letter, Ron, I didn't realize.
Sure.
I would say it's useful, not just for obviously radiological emergencies, but any kind of thing. So
Yeah.
if you have a
Child.
flood, if a sweep pond dam
Yeah.
that's built and floods, you can use it for that. We used it in Bennington to alert people of the PFOA contamination,
Yep.
which is not, it's not a
You
immediate.
get, you get amber alerts, you get
Yeah,
weather
you get
alerts, you get
everything.
everything.
And you can control that if the weather
Yeah.
alerts come at 3 in the morning. You want to say you only want to see.
One of the snafus of good communication is you don't always have it. The ice storm of '08, we had no phones, no cell phones. About the only thing we had was,
A bullhorn,
yeah, just about, yeah.
Right.
So,
which served well on town meeting days when we had no forums.
you went to your neighbor and asked, you didn't call him up. You just-
I'm sorry, Steve, did you have a question?
Ron, does anybody else know how many people or what percentage of the people in town have the emergency radios or the weather radios? You know, because my Yankees used to hand those out with the batteries and all the rest. Do we have any idea how many people still have those sitting?
I don't know.
Because those are still there, and probably most people have them, whether they're still.
And in fact, we're still giving them away. We have a bunch that we're still.
Right, and I'm-
But that
mine's-
program is about to end.
Mine still wakes me up in the middle of the night
But they're not gonna take it back.
when Roy Brook goes
No.
up.
Kill
Just
that
no
battery.
batteries, no new batteries.
There is a way to determine that. It's pretty data intensive, so.
It's just another source.
I love my Midwest.
Yeah, 3 of them.
If I may, the other piece, way back a while ago, equipment and maintenance and the training and planning is the other big thing you can do. Is if you like if you have a workshop every year and you bring together, not necessarily all of you, but maybe a select board rep, your emergency management director, your fire chief, whoever your police rep is, your public works guy, whoever else, your dog officer, and you bring them together and say, hey, what are we going to do in the event of a avian influenza? And you talk through that for just a couple hours and record that. That pays big dividends when something comes up, which is almost definitely not what you were talking about, but you've got a plan on the shelf that's similar, and you say, oh, okay, this is like that, and you do that. That's the other big payoff for your money.
And are there mock plans that the state or that you emergency services provides? Is sort of like, here's some pretend scenarios, so here's 5 you can use over 5 years, for example, or something?
Not yet, but
Okay.
we're working on that, or at least I'm working on it. So, we do have like a dam plan for towns, and actually that'll be at the Emergency Preparedness Conference. I'll be, hopefully I'm gonna give a class in how to develop which ones of those you wanna build, and then how to actually build them out, which, again, it's not a hard process. And if you iterate on it, if Ron comes up with his best guess and then presents that to the fire chief, he'll have a 75% solution. Between them, they'll have a 90%, and then you get all the other folks together, and you've got a pretty good solution that lasts for a few years, and then people move and things change, you build new roads, and you come back to it. But that's a great way to be ready for whatever's gonna happen.
And speaking of readiness, we still have select board members, and I know, Gordon, that you're new to this, but they have not completed ICS 100. And my ICS 200, I haven't received any certificates that say anyone's completed that. And I'm not quite sure how the funding's tied to that, but it could be in an emergency that a select board person, one of the 5 of you, may be called upon to come up with funding for XYZ. I don't know what XYZ is, but there is that possibility depending on what the emergency is. So it would be great if you guys could get that done. And I passed out those sheets.
You did.
And all you had to do is look at them and say, okay, I'm just gonna take the test. And then all the answers were there, and I'd really like for you guys to
So maybe we
do
could
that,
do this in a
please.
work session.
You could. Is there a
Because-
requirement that every
Yes.
board
Yes,
member?
yeah.
Post EPZ, is there a requirement that every,
It's actually a statewide requirement, as of October 1st, 2015, everyone who's any kind of responder, first, second, anybody related to response is supposed to take an ICS 200.
because I asked Alyssa that, and she said probably just your select board chair is sufficient for select board members.
Well, if none of you have a role in emergency, then no, but realistically, that's, as Ron pointed out, if the chair's on vacation, somebody else.
Sure, I think shame on.
You might have to back up and explain NIMS to them before they get to ICS.
NIMS is the National Infrastructure, National Incident Management System, and the Incident Command System is a component of that. It's just it's a way of doing business that says there's one person in charge, and that's the incident commander, and sometimes that can be 3 people. That's a unified command. But bottom line is there's one group or person that's in charge, and everybody works for them, and that's and the select board provides guidance, not micromanagement, and that's the way the plans actually end up written. So. And ICS 200 teaches you what all those roles are and gives you a nice handbook and stuff.
And if you're part of the military, you probably already have most of it anyway, because it seems to be very military
It's
based.
very
Yes.
much like that.
Thank you for that reminder, Ron. Glenn, is there anything else you wanna, anything we
Just
should
if
be
you have
asking
any-
you?
Not that I know, ma'am, I'm just, if there's anything that you guys wanna ask, I'm
Yeah.
a target of opportunity.
I'll go back to the question I asked you then before. Is the state trying to get money for Chieftown for
Yes.
statewide or just the EPZ towns? I think we've been trying for years to trying to get some sort of a stipend for all towns.
Yeah, so 2 answers. One, the state is absolutely trying to get money for towns from Vermont Yankee for the former, about to be former emergency planning zone town. But that is a negotiation, and therefore it's private and so on. My bosses have been talking for a long time about trying to get something like if you have a level 2 trained, emergency management directors get certified at level 1 or level 2, depending on how many classes they take. And they've talked for a while about somehow tying something that is at the state level, we would give you, you know, $1,000, I'm just making this up, but $1,000 if you have a level 1 guy and $2,000 if you have a level 3 guy or something. But I'm not aware of any, you know, I don't think there's any House or Senate resolutions that are actually doing that. It's, I personally think it's a great idea. I would absolutely support it, but I don't think there's any movement on it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ron, LEOP?
We have a workshop. 9 o'clock
Yes,
on Thursday,
Friday.
Friday. Friday, Thursday?
Friday's the workshop.
Friday.
Thursday's the
Friday.
presentation.
We who?
The Department of Homeland Security, Department of Emergency Management, Homeland Security at, down at the old schoolhouse in Brattleboro. And we're gonna be working on the LEOPs, right?
The what we're about to do is, because everything's about to change on Monday, is we'll step through the new state plan and the new town plan so that everyone can see how they interact and what happens now that everything's changed. A lot of things are changing.
Which will help us fine tune our LEOP. I need to get Gordon's phone number, contact information added to that. And then
Thursday night is the
Thursday night
presentation.
is the presentation. And anyone is welcome to join us on that one.
Thursday is the presentation of
There's
our LEOP or?
I'm giving a
Oh, the-
radiological emergency response plan program overview from 6,
Yes,
I think it's 6:30 to 8:30.
or longer if there's no questions.
Or shorter if there's not many questions. That just talks about what the radiological emergency program is, how it's about to change, why we have one, what is radiation, what is, you know, what's the response long term if there is a plume, you get something like a Fukushima, what does it look like when you try and let people back in, how long does that take? And just an overview. If Vermont Yankee was still active, it would be essentially a requirement that all select board members should attend. At this point, it's recommended.
Is this similar to the meeting that you had in January, that we had at VY in January?
A little, ma'am, but not exactly. This is more of a class. It's like an introduction to radiological emergency response. That's what it is.
So hopefully we'll have that fine tuning of our LEOP once I get that data, so that we know to submit it by the deadline of April
May
30th.
1st,
May
right?
1st, April 30th, May 1st. Moving forward.
Any questions? Thank you. Daniel, you're on for your update of the Black Barn Arts.
Okay.
Thank you for coming.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me. I was meaning to get here at some point. Some of you know me and some of you don't. So I'm Daniel Corngooth and I own 1250 Weatherhead Hollow. It's a small 2.7 acre, well 3 acre parcel directly across from the Guilford Fair. And I'm in the process of submitting an Act 250 application. And I wanted to update you on that because you'll see that application come across your respective desks soon. I'm hoping to submit within a month the application. You know, anyone who's been involved in that or seen them, you know, they take so long. I've actually been working on mine kind of on and off for 2 years, actually. The fire, as you probably know, was a bit of a distraction from focusing on that. So where we're at right now, we have most of our necessary documents to present. Also, as a quick overview, the Black Barn Arts Center is a artist residency space as well as community events space. So we will be offering opportunities, rentals for weddings, other activities, educational opportunities, a summer camp, some martial arts, other activities that can occur because there's a lot of different spaces on the property. We're using the old agricultural buildings. Some of the buildings will be dedicated to like dormitories, sort of like efficiency apartments, and then others will be a wood shop and various art studios. Then the main barn will be reserved primarily for events like weddings or presentations or dinners or things along those lines. And then there will be still 2 primary residences on the property as well. So I'll live there, and my mom is going to be an official Guilford member pretty soon. She's going to be moving sometime this summer. So that's pretty exciting. And so right now we're very, very close to having all the documents we need to submit our Act 250. As an interested party, I believe you guys have the power to call a hearing if you were so inclined. So I hope to make sure that any questions you have are answered before we get to that point, because as you may know, it'll expedite the process of actually getting the permit if we don't have to go to a hearing. I'm not sure if all.
Does it automatically go to a hearing?
No, they can do a fast track on it. So, for example, if you guys talk to me and have any questions, and we can do it in writing, we can have all the questions answered before the hearing, and they actually prefer that, as would I. So then, that being said, once we publicly announce the application for the permit, my neighbors could also, the Division of Historic Preservation could, Agriculture could, Wastewater Management could, the Fire Safety, Accessibility, any number of interested parties could say, hey, these questions weren't sufficiently answered for us, so we want to call a hearing. And like I said, right now, our main real funny negotiations are with the Division of Historic Preservation, because they have an interesting way of going about this. I mean, I don't know how to put it. I'm feeling rather slighted, to be honest, but that being said, I really also am committed to, I have this amazing property that's old, and that's very important to me, that it maintains its historic fabric, and that it doesn't become that it doesn't diverge from the values that are why I've chosen to live in Vermont for 20 years and hope to spend the rest of my life here. So that's kind of the broad overview. I didn't come with a big plan because I just wanted to make sure that some of you know who I am already, have a sense of what I'm doing, and then for those of you who don't, I'm happy to answer the questions or any other specific Act 250 related questions or town related questions. I don't know how it'll play itself out, but it is a great resource for the town, potentially both, for educational opportunities, for activities, for some revenue streams, some tax diversification, and things along these lines. I mean, our property taxes are obviously going up, but there's also income that will be generated and job opportunities, both some small and some larger ones. So.
I have 2 remarks and 1 question, I guess. Are you gonna put the silo back up?
Yeah, we're gonna put the silo up, although I'm trying to get a different roof than that old funky roof, which, gets into the vernacular of, I don't know these terms, but the old roof was a single ridge pole and low pitch roof, and I'm hoping to do more of the kind of 2 pitch roofs with the 8 sides. You do see silos around here with those types of roofs, but not that many. Probably a lot of them were replaced with the metal, just dome type.
And thank you for rebuilding rather than tearing down. And my main question is parking. Are you gonna have major events there? What are you gonna do for
That's
parking?
a great question, and that is addressed in our actual application, which you'll see. But so we're trying to we'll have some parking built behind the barn. Okay, so if those of you know the property, it's easy to imagine. If you don't, I'll try to give a good explanation. My next door neighbor is Gail Lilly. She has a horse farm. She has stables, and she does different types of therapeutic work with the animals. So she's on that side, then I have my big, big barn. And we built a little tiny road that goes between the barn and her property and comes around behind the barn. It used to be tractors would go there anyway, but we kind of formalized it as a driveway. And so back there, we're gonna have, 8 or 10 parking spaces. But we're not trying to take, we had to take also some of that back part of the property for where our septic system's gonna go. So it's gonna be a mound back there. And then the rest of the backfield will still be hay. Right now, we have Norm Covey who does that. And so right now we're gonna continue. I would like to have kept it all for Norm, but we had to use some of it for the septic and then some of it for the parking. But we're not going to have a lot of parking on that property. And the property is really not that big in a way. So we'll have between right now for for the farmhouse and the apartment where I live now, and across the street, there's like 5 or 6 parking spots like right now already. And then we're gonna add another 8 or 10. But they won't be visible from the road. And then for events, we have, and I have to get this formalized with the, with Dave Franklin and the Guilford Fair. But we already have an exchange of services, so they sometimes we have overflow parking for them, but we're gonna come up with some sort of arrangement so that when we have events, we're probably just gonna rent their parking. If not the whole fairgrounds. We hope to come up with, I haven't really talked to him about the details of this. The way we do it now, like for example, my wedding's coming up in September, and we just rented the fairgrounds for that day, because that's where we're gonna park. And so in the future, we're hoping that every time we have an event that requires more than, let's say, 15 parking spaces, then we'll be in communication with them both for if there's going to be needing for some traffic control on the road, and that would be done privately, and also for the larger events where we might, let's say, have if you have a wedding, you might have 100, 120 people. That's a sizable number of cars, and that just wouldn't fit on our property. They would fit in that back field. But our goal is to keep the back field for haying, so which is part of our, as the Active 50, it's part of our relationship with the agriculture department too. Make sure that those agricultural resources are maintained. Also, that reminded me of another question. Yes, so we've been in some loose discussion with the town, and I will also formalize this about some signage and some road crossing paint. Because I straddle that road, and so we're hoping to get some better signage up as time goes on, and I don't know how that works with who's in charge of that. I know some about how that works, but about what you would like to see in terms of my involvement in that. But that'll be formalized. These are some of what I consider dotting the i's and crossing the t's, and I don't think we need to have like a really formal arrangement before I submit my application, even if as long as it's acknowledged that I've pursued this and that there'll be a further inquiry.
And just to give background on that, that was one of the things when the site plan was sort of preliminarily sent over. I had asked the question if there would be any consideration to the way it lays out. As Daniel said, it straddles the street, and the dormitories are on one side and the facilities are on the other, and I had just asked if there was going to be any sort of consideration given to crossing there, because it is a bit of a...
That's a weird area.
It is a
curve
weird...
and a hill.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
there's a
visibility is
curve.
tough, just because I've walked that during the fair, and I had just asked her, will there be any consideration to safety for pedestrian crossing there?
And people love to fly.
This they do on the paved roads of Guilford.
In a little red car.
It's a 35 mile speed limit.
Exactly,
Yeah,
35.
that's right. Yeah.
But I hear that's not new. I've been here 20 years, but I've heard that people have always liked to go fast on that.
Oh, yeah.
Since they had things that went fast.
And it was paved.
It's now all paved, it's paved all the way. I do remember when there were dirt stretches.
Any questions? Steve, I'm sorry, I can barely see you over
Sorry,
there in the corner.
did you say it's a for-profit or not-for-profit project?
That's a good question. We're actually in L3C right now, so that's a limited profit, limited liability company.
Okay.
So that L3C designation is a relatively new designation in the state of Vermont.
Right.
And I actually, as a businessman, in the process of exploring what that means, both in terms of benefits to our business, benefits to our community. It is, as an L3C though, I know that we are not, we're not selling widgets. So we're not producing a product that has a massive, sort of no sky's the limit income generating revenue potential. But, and we will look into future 501c3 options. Again, they have their own pros and cons.
Which would impact the tax ramifications of the property and things
Yeah,
like that.
yeah, it would. And well, even if it was, even if the business itself became a 501c3, the property will still probably be held privately. So and we almost certainly will work with 501c3s both for extending their tax shelter for certain programming that we'll do, where we can hope to find that type of funding. But that being said, in general, right now we're an L3C, and so it's probably going to stay like that. for the time being. Or for the indefinite future.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations on the wedding.
Oh,
Yeah.
thanks. Yeah. And,
Are you gonna be at the first wedding?
yeah, we're the inaugural wedding. So,
And when do you think this might be finished, your project? Or is this just
I
gonna keep
love
going?
that question. And a boy can dream. We're hoping to be able to do our programming sometime in 2017.
Good,
The Act 250 really does make it complicated.
it does.
And I didn't mean for it to set out like this, because I thought I would sort of do that soft opening where
Yeah.
we do a little bit of this and do a little bit of that. And then someone said, I think you better talk to those Act 250 guys.
Good luck.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't have to stick around.
No?
No.
I love
Unless you
you.
want it.
You're probably gonna need a glass of wine or something.
I'm gonna go sit there. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
No, I hate that. Thank you.
So do we call Ellie?
Yeah.
Ellie!
Jim.
What?
You want my help in July, you better get in here. I mean, May.
Should we just sit over here, or what's the?
Sure.
Okay.
You're on.
You're on.
Collaborative with Guilford.
Where would you like us
Signed
to
in,
sign
I think
in?
it's right back there. There you go. Thank you very
Okay.
much.
This is a project update from the Community Collaborative for Guilford. I leave my own.
Why,
You're
thank
on.
you. Thanks for inviting us or letting us be here this evening. So you're saying update, it also might be an introduction too, but, and it's also us coming to you to possibly seek approval for a pre-application to the Vermont Community Development Program for a planning grant on behalf of CC4G, so Community Collaborative for Guilford. So I don't know how much background you have on where we came from, what we started with, so.
Beginning, please.
What'd you say?
Can you start from the beginning?
Yeah, sure. So CC4G kind of grew out over the last 3 or so years from a committee at the church called the Vision Committee. And that committee was kind of tasked to look at the future needs of the church, but also the needs of the community and how we might be able to meet those needs. And what we're currently doing is working with the church and with Guilford Cares. We have a rep that comes to some of our meetings. And we're trying to create a community center building which would house a child care and education program for birth to school age with before and after school options for kids. Medical equipment storage, space for the food pantry, and also possibly an office space for Guilford Cares. So looking at their programs and having them come over. And possibly some additional rental space for other local nonprofits. And also creating some green play space that might include a public labyrinth, some nature trails on the property, a basketball or half basketball court, because I don't think we can fit a full basketball court with all the stuff we're thinking about. That might be a little bit more appealing for the older youth. And we're thinking of doing it on the church property in the land that they just purchased, that additional lot, which is I think about 3/4 of an acre. So we like the idea of being in that area because you've got Route 5, you've got Guilford Center Road, and most folks who are traveling to work from this area are going on those roads to either go to Brattleboro or to go to Keene board to go down to Greenfield. It's a main traffic route. I already think the church attracts quite a few folks. I did a 2-week study, which I'll admit did include the sugar supper, but I just kept track of how many folks were in the building for 2 weeks, and we had over 625 people that were in that building. So there's a lot of reasons that people go to that neck of the woods. Just to give you a couple of examples, again, these are examples from the church, but there's senior lunch there. There's 3 different exercise classes, a yoga class. There's 3 different AA groups, an Al-Anon group. There's, we have a support group for families with Asperger's syndrome. We also are an emergency shelter, besides the weddings and funerals and stuff that usually happens at a church. And there's also a lot of folks that use the building for meeting space. Friends of Algiers, Fire District, the Pit Stoppers. The state's gonna have the meeting for the Route 5 bridge coming up.
Yeah.
So anyway, some other benefits that we thought of in terms of a child care center. Guilford does not have a registered or licensed child care facility at all. I used to be one of the few remaining, but so there's no child care here, infants, preschool. And I know the school is thinking of possibly getting a program, a public preschool in the school in 2017. But even if that were to occur, that's just a preschool, which is 3 to 5 year olds. And we're looking for the whole gamut of infant through school age kids. And anywhere in this state, there is a high need for infant care. Also, with providing childcare, we could attract more young families to Guilford, which I think is important. There are a number of young families here now who don't have care and are looking for it. Also, providing consistent care for families. There's lots of studies that show when you've got families that have consistent quality child care, then they are more productive in their workplace, wherever that is. So that, I think, is a really important point. Very often, those young families who are searching for childcare, where both parents are working especially, they also need other services like the food pantry, like the services that often come with, that are connected to child care centers, like the Children's Integrated Services. So being able to connect families to those important services, I think, are very important for Guilford. Plus, the child care center would create probably around 10 jobs between teachers, cleaning, the staff that you would need to run the center. Having Guilford Cares work with us, we hope to collaborate with them and move the food pantry to that area by the church. Also to create a permanent storage place for their medical supplies, because right now they're in Richard Davis's barn. And they'd like a place that's weatherproof and can store things and make them easily accessible to folks all year round. And our hope is just to be more of a social services center for folks, where we can connect, make connections for services, not necessarily provide direct services, but maybe, depending on where we go with this project. So our hope for applying for the planning grant would be to help us flesh out our ideas, look at all the options, and come out with a visual for what we hope to make this project into. Put some hard numbers to our costs and possible grants and income, and develop a plan for sustainability for this community center. and also get help with the legal issues of, one of our ideas at this point is to actually create a ground lease with the church where they own the property, and we would build the building and create a ground lease situation. Does that, people understand what that means?
No, sorry.
Are you a separate organization?
Yes.
That's where, okay.
Yep, CC4G is its own nonprofit, and it has state and federal standing at this point. So we've gone through that process and created as a nonprofit. We're also in the, I know Sylvia has helped with working on our bylaws, Sheila's mom, but we're also working on the board development piece right now. So we're kind of getting our feet under us, and then we're going to start going out and trying to find a good representation, a cross-representation from Guilford and possibly other, maybe Brattleboro, maybe Greenfield, but where we need to be looking at who we're going to be serving and how we're going to be serving them, and getting folks that can help us with that. So we need some board members. We've also talked a lot with Wyndham Childcare in Brattleboro. They're the local resource and referral agency, and also do a lot of trainings and help folks create childcare, startup childcares. And I've done some work with a new Guilford resident who is a transplant from New Jersey, who has done some award-winning program development around childcare. So that, to me, is a pretty exciting piece, and this is Dana Berry, and she's very excited about working with us, so that's fun. Done a lot on square footage needs and that kind of stuff. And our goal is to try to get the pre-application in by the end of April.
Wow.
Pre-application, not the application. So to really get the ball rolling. So does that kind of give folks an idea of who we are, where we are, what we want to do? And, this was one of the ideas that came up out of that community visit program back, that's the one. So we were one of the top 3 ideas. At that time, it was focused on the church doing, creating all
Development of
this.
the church as that kind of center, but
Right.
you've really moved it beyond that in pretty spectacular ways, I think.
We've done that because we wanted to branch out further. We felt that the church is a kind of a limiting factor, and the broader base that we can get, the better the collaboration for the community collaborative for Guilford.
And I think the stronger it will be.
I agree. I
Makes
think
sense.
it's terrific. Yeah.
Did you want a little more explanation on the ground lease piece?
Yes.
We need a little more explanation on the ground lease piece.
So what, the church will own the land. If you know the Guilford Community Church, and then there's a property right next to it,
Where the
which
trailer
they,
is?
correct.
Or
So the
was?
trailer will
Still
go
is.
away, so that leaves 3/4 of an acre there that the church will continue to own. And so the Community Collaborative for Guilford will engage in a long-term lease, land lease for the land, and then they will develop a building that they will own. So it's not uncommon, it's not like a brand new, there are other organizations that do this pretty frequently, very successfully, so there's some groundwork already laid that they could tap
Church owns
into.
the land and the collaborative owns the building.
Correct.
That's correct.
Correct.
Right.
So that if the church, because it's a religious entity, can't apply for grant funding, whereas a nonprofit can. So it enables this group to raise money, for example, through the community development program, partnering with the municipality to fund bricks and mortar work for their project, which as the church, they would not have been able to do that. And it also makes it more community-based rather than it tying it to a religious organization.
Exactly.
So the grant that you would be applying for would be funding for the building, for
For-
program development, for
It would be a
entity,
planning grant.
a planning grant.
That would be the first phase of it, and then depending on what that planning grant tells us, we would move forward from that.
So it's really gonna look at the feasibility of the whole project.
Right.
And help us to really tease out what our options are, and, how we're gonna move forward. So,
Sounds like a positive step in trying to get services available in Guilford you don't have to go to Brattleboro for.
Yes, definitely. I feel in terms of the childcare piece anyway, you know, I've spent, I don't know, 25, 30 years in that world. That's my background, and I don't think the need for quality childcare is going to go away. You know, I think we also have an opportunity to look at Omega and Commonwealth and possibly GS Precision and say, you know, there's ways to partner with them. You know, if they want to be pulling in a younger workforce, we can say, you know, Commonwealth might be able to secure 3 spots at this child care center or something like that. I've certainly been in organizations or child care programs that did just that. We could also partner with Head Start and get the services that the Head Start programs have, or at least be able to direct folks to those programs. You know, we have a great resource at Prouty Center with the Children's Integrated Services team, which, you know, helps with housing, subsidy issues, finding childcare, helping kids get appropriate, their needs met when there are developmental concerns. So there's lots of resources that we could link people to, but there's also, I think, a great need for childcare in this area.
Steve?
Ellie, do you know, on the most basic level, do you know if the land can take the building and the services that you're, or is that what you're trying to find out?
We need to find that out.
That they can.
There's currently a mobile home there, and it's on a slab. So we have to look at that.
Because the deal stopper is if you can't.
It sure is a deal stopper.
That would be one of the parts of the feasibility study is.
You know, there might be 2 exploring. The church has, what, 5? I don't know, 5 acres, but I could be wrong on that. So we may need to look at other pieces of that creatively as well. Yeah, you know, it might be too wet there. I don't know if, I'm gonna learn a lot about perk tests and environmental studies and stuff like that.
And the feasibility study might yield a completely different idea than what's already sort of growing in your minds.
We've had some local folks come in and look at the property and make suggestions, and we've not found that there's a showstopper at that point. And the people that have come in, we feel they would know that if that's the case. And so we feel fairly confident that moving forward will be a good idea, but we really don't know that, and we won't know that until such time as we have this planning grant.
And one of the huge bonuses for any property that you're hoping to develop is that it has municipal water and sewer.
Yeah.
That's a
Oh,
huge
yeah,
piece.
it's right there.
Huge
right there.
piece.
Thank you very
So that's a
much.
big box to check off on that list of.
So I'll ask the stupid question, what's involved from our standpoint to move this ahead?
The only municipalities are the only entity allowed to apply for Vermont Community Development Program funding. So you all would need to agree to support their application for a planning grant to the community, for the Vermont Community Development Program. I'm stumbling a bit, I'm sorry.
Does the select board need to approve the pre-application as well as the application?
Yeah, I would think so.
Okay.
Whether formally or informally, if they pass it in the form of a motion that they support a pre-application, that's, I'm sure, gonna be fine.
Resources that are expected from the town on this are,
We will be.
Yeah,
So
my
you'll-
expectation is that we
right.
can talk to Katie.
no, that's what I kind of took.
Essentially, won't we be just like a pass-through like we have
Right.
been before, right?
Yeah, like we'll
Yeah.
have to warn hearings.
Right.
I'll be the point person, just like in the past with the community development specialist. I'll do the grant administration if they do get funded for it, so.
It's already in the town plan too, which is
Right.
Clean.
already a plus.
It's in the town plan?
Something, we
There
mentioned
it
this,
is,
but, yeah.
Need
It's-
for child
I
care.
have to look it up, but it's talking about the
Yeah.
need for childcare, and we specifically covered all of the goals
Right.
in the VCRD thing in the town plan, the planning
I guess
commission.
I
Letter of
should read
support
into
from the
that.
Guilford Planning Commission.
Yes. Yeah,
Did I have that on that list?
it's there, so,
So I guess we need a motion.
so, yes, I think we need.
I will make the motion that we support the Community Collaborative of Guilford in this planning. So you're calling it a pre-planning application process as well as a planning application process?
Well, they're having us go through a pre-application, which we did about a week ago, our very first look at it.
Right.
It's gonna take a little bit more work to actually hand it in, but,
Hey, you gotta
But to
crawl
cover
before you
both,
walk.
right,
yeah.
to cover both things, we
I
just,
think we should just do one, and then if
Okay.
then we can do the next one of
excellent,
the
okay.
application. So I'm guessing you'll come back and update us and let
Yes,
us
we will.
Right.
I would
No.
guess so.
Although it
that
seems
you probably
well
wanna
researched, I
read
mean.
the application before we.
send it.
Second.
Dick seconded, thank you.
I was about to second ordinance.
So you're
First
sort of
motion,
fell
too.
swooping,
Second.
doing the pre-app and the application in one motion?
Just that, I was
Just
just
the
pre-app.
Just pre-app, okay.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you
And
very
and
much.
Gabby has community
Thank
development
you.
experience too, so between the two of us, you
Okay.
We can help you out. It seems like a great project. I think it seems really well researched. It seems like you're going through the right steps with the planning.
Took
think
us
it's
a couple
exciting.
years to get to this point so far.
So,
It seems
Cross my
slow,
fingers.
but like
It's really
someone said,
not. It's
baby
really
steps, and we're gonna keep at it.
thank you.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
your support, though, really
Yeah.
is appreciated.
Thank you for pulling
you.
it.
Yes.
Volunteering to do
Very
it.
impressive.
It's amazing what
Well
the
done.
work
Yeah.
does.
Woo!
Yeah, maybe Gabby will utilize it in the near future. You're
Um,
really great.
You'd like to know when Green Up is? Green Up is the first Saturday in May.
May 7th.
You, of all people, Dick, should know that, since I made you work it. The first Saturday in May, yeah. And,
Well, I knew the day, I was looking for the date.
I don't know what the
May
date is.
It's May
Is it 7th? Okay. And it'll still be at the Grange. We'll be there for the day. Town trucks will be there, and the town trucks will leave at the end of the day. Danny has informed me, which I think is a good idea.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah,
There's a reminder on the homepage of the website as well, just so you know.
okay. If anybody feels excited about helping me make some new signs, all of my signs, I mean, they've been up for, I don't know, as long as I've been doing Green Up, and they're falling apart, so I need to make some new signs.
Do you have a time that you're going to be doing that so that?
The next sunny weekend. I can put out an email on Front Porch.
Yeah, why don't you do that?
Okay,
Okay, that would be great.
yeah, it's just painting
Yeah,
and
we did that
screwing.
last year.
Okay,
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is the reserve fund balance policy. And we have an amendment of the 2015 version, which Katie can walk us through, please.
Sure. In your materials, I sent both the old and the new. And the old references that you'd fund the reserve, basically using the town budget, which means you'd raise the money to fund the reserve by raising taxes, which is not what the intent of the article passed on town meeting day was. So, the revised policy states that the fund balance shall be maintained at a level not less than 5% and not more than 20% of the total operating general fund and highway fund expenditures. The balance of the fund shall be created and maintained using budget surplus funds as available. So it in no way states that you would use money raised through taxes to fund
Right, that's
only
stating,
surplus money.
that's
Only
stating
surplus money.
if there's $25,000 left in the coffers at the end of the year.
Yep, you can
We
decide
can
to use
decide
that,
to
yep.
either put that in there or give it back into freight, right?
No,
No?
you need to fund your reserve.
Okay.
Minimum
that's
of
what-
5%, maximum
Okay,
of 20.
that's where I was getting a little
And as
confused there.
When we get further into the meeting, we're gonna get under finances, where I'm gonna ask you, to authorize some adjusting entry recommendations, and we'll cover the reserve there. Okay, so basically to adopt the revised policy guiding the fund, and then later on, I'm gonna ask if you'll consider moving money to fund the fund between the 5% and the 20%.
That article was passed, what, 4 years ago, 3 years ago?
Pardon me?
It was
The
in the
article
town
was
meeting, the
passed.
2013 town
Yeah.
meeting.
And I actually, in this new policy, I put that it was Article 6, it was May 5th, 2013, and I quoted the exact text from the article, so that for anyone that follows us, they have all of that history right there,
Well done.
so they don't have to
Right.
go
great.
back through many town reports to see what the voter's intent was. It's all now in there.
So I would like to make the motion that we amend the reserve fund policy from the 2013 meeting.
You
As
adopted it.
presented.
Actually, the last policy was adopted on February 23rd of 2015. So you're just amending that policy.
Okay, so I would like to make the motion that we amend the reserve fund policy.
Second.
Go ahead, thank you.
All in favor?
Thank you.
Any opposed? Thank you. Ron Lanker and Dick Clark, we are, next on the agenda is the Vigilant Guard exercise update.
Ron doesn't know anything.
Ew.
I just know show up on the 27th of July.
Is that what it is?
That's it, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this is, all I can say is this is a statewide catastrophic event that is bigger and more complex than anything we've had before. And Herb and I are the planners, so we know what's coming down the pike. Ron will know when we call him up in the morning and say, open up the EOC. It is, it's very complicated, and there's a lot to it. And
Do you need something from the select board?
you definitely will need something from the select board, especially the chair, the EOC.
I mean, I
Herb
can't
said
be on
that,
vacation.
Herb had stopped in
Yes.
last week.
Yeah.
And what he is gonna do is he is going to come to the Thursday work session and talk to you guys
Yeah.
about what the select board's involvement will be.
Yeah.
If that's okay with everybody.
And is this a
And I didn't
statewide?
know if Ron, if you wanted to join, just as
Well,
the
I don't
emergency
know. I
management
wonder-
director.
I wonder if that I guess
It's
we could preface it with Herb that if anything is gonna be talked about that's gonna let the cat out of the bag.
Well, he can't let the cat out of the bag to
Right.
them either.
Oh,
I
that's
think it's
true.
just,
Yeah, that's
I
true.
think, I mean, his concern was that there are members of the select board now who have never been through an event in Guilford, an emergency in
Yeah.
Guilford before.
Yeah.
So to have gone through that and included you in there, because you have not actually, in the emergency management director role, gone through. So he was gonna step
Not a
through,
big drill, no.
what's that?
I haven't been through a big drill, just the
Right,
ones that
right.
have
So-
been here.
I don't think
I'll
he's
be
gonna
here.
let anything out more than this is what you can expect. I think he
Yeah.
was gonna talk about it in a more global way
Okay.
versus specific.
I know, I called him, after I see it on the agenda, I called him, and I said, what did you tell Katie? I said, you didn't tell her.
Do you know?
No, he asked
knows,
us.
he's a
I
planner.
know, that's what I mean,
No,
I'm
he
gonna
knows.
take him out back.
Herb came in and said, so what is, how are you involving the select board in Vigilant Guard? I said,
I know the
All I know
timeline,
is
the
the
whole
time- the
thing.
name of it.
Of course you do.
Yeah.
I said, I don't know anything about it. I didn't even know the date.
Yeah.
I know nothing about it,
So now we know the date, thank you.
which is
27th,
huge.
yeah.
So mark your calendars.
What's the
That's the
date?
biggest part
July
of all. The rest
27th.
is easy. You just follow
Uh,
on.
Next thing on the agenda is the Green River Covered Bridge.
It's a Wednesday.
We'll see you Thursday morning. Who can update us on that?
I can update you on it.
please?
Yes, of course.
Yes,
The-
it is statewide.
The project is, feels like now it's coming up quickly. We have a pre-construction meeting this Thursday at 10 o'clock. The contractor,
Sorry.
representative of the contractor will be there from Wright Construction. Our resident engineer for Du Bois King will be represented there and running the meeting. Dan will be there, I'll be there, you'll be there. Matt Mann from Wyndham Regional Commission will be there. I don't know if Sean James is gonna be there or not. I'm kind of thinking.
Still not answering?
I don't know. And they'll walk through how the project will unfold. So that's this Thursday at 10 a.m.
Here?
Here. Construction for the project is going to begin on May 23rd. I have put an announcement on the town's website, bless you. If you click on it, it will give you some of the project details. Kind of gives you what's going to take place in terms of scope of work. It gives you the dates that it goes from May 23rd to September 30th. It states that the bridge will only be allowed to be closed from June 20th till August 26th. So all work.
Last day of school is the 14th of June.
Oh, you better knock on wood, man.
No, it is.
But what if there was a blizzard? They claim in 4 days you had a week of snow days.
Oh, jeez. Let's hope not.
I'm just saying, I'm just saying, don't say
Don't
it out
jinx it.
loud. Right, don't say it out
We're
loud.
gonna make Ian crazy
Yeah.
with the knocking.
So the announcement is on the homepage. That's where it will continue to live throughout the project. Anytime there's an update, anytime there's more information to share, it will be everybody out there on the homepage. It's also under, if somebody else were navigating the website, it's under Highway Department, under Road and Bridge Closure. So 2 places. I'm gonna guess that we're probably gonna start an email.
It's already in place.
It's in,
Okay.
we have the listserv,
Already in
right?
I
place.
think were you the person communicating with?
Mhm.
Can we resume that again?
We can.
Okay, so maybe between Gabby and I, we can work out the communication piece with the residents on the west side of the bridge. So that's my general update there.
So, speaking of bridges, we also have the Route 5 Algiers Bridge. Katie, Danny, and I met with Jill Bear from VTrans, and they will be hosting a public information meeting about that bridge on Tuesday, May 3rd at 6:30 p.m. at the Guilford Community Church to discuss the replacement, the details of the
6:30.
6:30. That meeting is probably also going to be on the front page of the Guilford website, right? And we'll post.
I think it might
And
already,
there,
I might have already
put it up there.
It's actually in the Gazette.
It's going to be all over the place.
Yeah, and it's a state-owned bridge, just so everybody is aware
Yeah.
of that. It's in Guilford, but it's owned by the state of Vermont. And construction for the bridge replacement will take place in over a 4-week time period in the summer of 2017.
They moved that up a
Mhm.
little bit, they put it on
Yeah.
television, yeah.
And just to sort of tag one last piece onto that, that they have been in touch with the fire department, so the conversation has been moving forward in terms of emergency services and
Yeah.
how all that will interplay
Is-
during the
is-
project.
Is my understanding with that, they're gonna redo the original on-ramp so that they can go on the interstate and get off there and get back on. Well, I don't know how
I
far
think-
that's going, but that's what they're
I
talking.
think that
They're
might be-
discussing it. I think
yeah.
that'll be in the meeting.
Yeah,
There's
yeah,
nothing, there wasn't anything confirmed yet.
yeah.
Any questions about that?
Is the pre-construction meeting for the Green River Bridge open to the public?
It is not. It's not a warrant meeting. But if you showed up, I don't think that we would throw you out.
Or is it just a general question?
Sure.
Yeah.
I just throw it out there.
That was a
I mean, I
good
think that you
thing.
could probably, I don't know if they would allow you to interject at all, but,
No.
So unlike Steve. And so Dan's not here to talk about the highway. I understand that the crew is waiting for some dry weather to start grading roads. And they're working on culverts, checking culverts now in this rainy time to make sure that they're clear.
Present time, they're working on the backside of Green River Hill, stone lining the ditch.
Stone lining the ditch?
Which is, yes.
but they're not gonna do that until after we've submitted our grant
And
application,
we got it
right?
already.
Moving right along.
Hopefully we'll get that.
We have a revised VTrans T60 financial report. You guys had approved the one I had done originally, and when we met with VTrans, it was a very informative meeting.
It was.
It was
pretty.
the most informative meeting I've ever had with them. Every year we do this, and it was the first time that they explained that we want to get our non-winter maintenance number as low as we can get it. Because when we have a significant event and we have an emergency situation, which we could seek emergency grant funding from VTrans, they base that need on 10% or greater of your non-winter maintenance number.
Wow.
Get out of here.
And if I
Yeah.
know that, you would have gotten that thing way down there. Yeah, so, they have, Mark Pickering is now the supervisor of, and Megan Brunk is is Mark's replacement for his former job, and they're a great team together. They really get the work that towns are doing, they get
They're very
how difficult.
supportive.
Yep, they're fantastic, so they've been a great resource in the last couple of weeks for me, especially, working through the, stuff we need for the Better Roads Grant Program that we're gonna apply for, so. So yeah, we revised the form. It brought the number down by about $200,000. So the non-winter maintenance number is now $316,165.50. So all we would need to be at damages is about $31,000, which is nothing in terms of highway expenditure. So
Not at the price of gravel.
So,
exactly.
is there a motion to approve the revised TA 60 as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Second, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Are there any excess weight permits?
There's one for Emery trucking.
I
Bye,
would like to make the motion that we grant the excess weight permit for Emery Trucking, following all the rules and regulations. Don't go over the roads when they're muddy or posted, and stay out of the Green River covered bridge.
Thank you. And second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I never heard you say.
I didn't say aye, I'm sorry.
Oppose them if you'd like me to.
I want a strong affirmative there.
How would we make out with the highway visit, Katie? Any big changes on the financial?
Oh, that's what we just covered.
Oh,
That was
yeah,
this.
okay,
Yeah.
all right, yeah, all right.
There's two more signed. The fiscal year 2015 audit, we have the letter from the auditors and the final audit. And it was distributed to everybody. I don't know if there are any questions. Anybody has any comments to make about it?
There's just one, we had one finding in the audit, and it was the same as the prior year, I believe, which was the capital asset accounting. It states we have no system in place to record and track our capital assets and related accumulated depreciation, and that we've relied on the auditors to maintain this. We do have a system. It was not updated in the last year, and that was the reason why we got that finding. In going through this audit process with them, I've already updated all of it. We've done the journal entries to correct the depreciation, which was improperly booked, and we've booked the correct depreciation, and this won't be a finding for next year.
Excellent.
So,
So, thank
Thank
you
you.
for taking care of
So,
that.
yeah, I wanted to say, Katie, this is pretty late, I think, to get audited statements.
That's
And I wanted
totally
to say Katie has done an amazing amount of work with Cynthia Stoddard as well.
actually, just one, really.
Oh, only
Yeah, I
one?
don't need to
Oh.
see the other as much as,
Um,
but we,
So we're gonna post this on the website, and we might extract a brief summary to illustrate the fiscal health of this town, because I think this is a very strong report. It's only getting stronger, and I think it's worth letting people know that it looks really good, so. But we have a couple of adjusting entry recommendations. Katie, let me just look through it.
sure. So I sent a memo to everyone in your board materials asking for fiscal year 15 and fiscal year 16 adjusting entries. So is it all right if we just step through it?
Please do. yeah.
Okay, so the first one is in reference to the reserve funds that you just adopted a revised policy for. It explains the purpose of the fund as spelled out in Article 6, and I went through the calculations showing what 5% would look like and what 20% would look like to fund the fund balance reserve fund. So it would be minimally $93,442 at 5%, and maximally at $373,769 at 20%. Based on the results of the audit, and I spoke with our accountant just to make sure that I was reading it correctly, because it's a pretty scary thing when you're talking about this much money. Based on the final audit results, that you have $258,978 that you could kick into the reserve fund. And that would get you to 16.33%, where 20% is the maximum. And that does include prior year's balance. That's why the number is so large, because
We
for
didn't do it in 2014.
14 or
Right.
15, correct.
So we're playing catch-up with this transfer. Do you want to, should we do these individually, or do you want to walk us through all of them?
I can walk you through all of them
And then-
if you, I'm gonna include this as a record with the meeting,
Okay,
so that if anybody wants to see that, they're welcome to.
excellent. So let's
So,
keep going on
okay.
that then.
Also based on the audit results, the uncommitted highway fund surplus is $377,347. That includes $59,169 that was sitting in a separate reserve fund, but they put all highway money together into one detail for the audit. So this is separate money from your reserve fund. I have in the past separated out highway surplus money so that it's, from a reporting perspective, it's easier for you to see what your prior year surpluses are, what your available money is, versus trying to pull it out of a current year balance sheet. Does that make sense? So, you could transfer $318,178 from the highway fund to the annual surplus highway fund to track it separately, so that all prior year surplus lives for highway lives separately in that fund.
So those are the, and then we've 16.
So moving into, so that's sort of considering FY15's balances. Looking at FY16, I've been doing some work in the general ledger, and one of the things that triggered it was Danny asked me about the capital fund, and how much money there was left over in the capital fund, and one of the things that I found was that the capital fund's in the negative. So the $150,000 that was transferred over at July 1st for the truck was $204,000. So it created a $54,788 deficit in the capital fund. So what needs to take place is money from the highway surplus needs to be transferred to the capital fund to make up that difference, so that it puts the capital fund back at a balance where it should be. So that's a current year journal entry that I need approval for. And another part of this is the town, we've officially come to the end of our Irene recovery with FEMA. We received our last payment, so we are completely done. So the FEMA fund, the Irene Recovery Fund, has a balance of $88,506.31. And I was gonna recommend that this money be transferred to the capital fund for the purpose of funding projects related to the town becoming compliant with Act 64. So if we need money for a grant match in any form, that we have a pool of money sort of for that purpose, because that's gonna take some money, that work, so.
64,
What?
64.
Act 64.
That's gonna take a
Yep.
large amount of
Yeah.
funds.
But the timing of it's all good, because we're sort of delving into this whole capital planning process as a town, that this ties into that, because there's a 20-year planning process that is part of Act 60, so it's can dovetail together pretty nicely, actually.
Excellent.
And then the last is the Guilford 250th Celebration Fund, has had $450.23 sitting in it. And really the bulk of that is a check that was written to a vendor for whatever event took place during the 250th, and the guy never cashed his check. We've contacted him, we've done everything, and whether, we've said if it's lost, tell us, we'll stop payment. Never had any communication, it's been 5 years, and we just wanna get rid of this. We just wanna write it off at this point, so, there's a $450 balance, and I was just gonna recommend you transfer it to the general fund, since taxpayer money was used to help fund the 250th, it makes sense that that goes back to the taxpayers.
Yes.
Is this a complete Article 6 in here?
On the first, where?
Yeah, on the first page, Chairman.
It's verbatim. It's taken out of the town report.
Hmm.
That's what was.
Oh, so everything there is fine. I thought there was a line in there that said to be expended for emergencies by this, well, I guess it is sort of, yeah,
Funding-
non-recurring, yeah. it
Yeah,
would be,
unanticipated revenue
Yeah.
shortfalls and paying non-recurring and
Yeah.
unanticipated.
Okay, yeah,
general.
okay. Answer my own question.
Yeah, and I mean, just for background, that article got circulated through Vermont League of Cities and Town and the attorney, so we were covered when we wrote that article.
When we took it to the voters.
Exactly. So, that's, those,
Thank you
those
for
are
that
my
work, Katie.
questions. If you are supportive of those, then I'll do the journal entries probably next week.
So can we have a motion to approve the entries as recommended in Katie's memo?
So moved.
So, second,
Second.
Gordon? All in any more discussion?
Or any
Or any
questions?
My only question, that doesn't change the motion or the second, is, as the newbie, this 258 that's being combined for fiscal 14 and 15 is the surplus. Do we, is that right?
Are you in? Yep.
Yeah,
Thank you.
the-
Okay, that's what I thought.
I'm just curious, annually, have we been seeing after our budgeting process a surplus every year? Because those are some pretty
Yeah.
significant surpluses.
Historically.
Have-
no.
Is
Not
that by
to-
design?
Not to that extent, no, it is not.
And what about on the highway side? I mean, I can understand variances in terms of, the weather being a big, I'm just curious with that number as well. Is that kind of a normal surplus that we might
I
say?
don't know if he's ever run a red. The surplus varies quite a bit.
Not that I've worked for the town. We've
But the
never had
surplus
a-
varies quite a bit. This winter, for instance, is not a very,
Right,
very
right,
demanding
no, and I
winter.
agree.
Yeah.
But on the general fund side, those are pretty big swings, and just, are we maybe looking at areas where we could be a little more aggressive with our forecasting?
Absolutely.
Yes,
You
we
know,
are.
budget? So that's wonderful, thank you.
And, for example, just to give you an idea, we saw an extra about 20,000 in interest income from delinquent taxes.
Yeah,
That was a
Gotcha.
surprise, just in the last 6 months.
That's true,
Of
okay.
fiscal year 15.
Right.
So I mean, you see those sort of, who could have predicted that?
Yeah, no, that
You know what I
is
mean?
understandable.
And I'm not saying that to be sarcastic, I'm saying
Right.
like.
No, and it's
sort
great
of
to have a
nice, Who could
surplus.
have predicted that?
Don't
Yeah.
get me wrong, I plan on that side,
And we
but
also
that's,
get told, that state revenues might be down and
Mhm.
that you might see a reduction in the amount of state aid to highway that you're gonna see, so
fair enough.
whenever I start to hear those things, I might trim a few thousand off, and then it ends up being the same.
Gotcha.
And it's,
No,
Right.
But
thank you, it's an educational,
Yeah, we're actually rolling the highway surplus into this also?
no.
no,
Okay,
that's,
all right.
that's
So-
into their
so
fund,
read
but
through
that's,
this.
Yeah,
you'll
well,
see
yeah, I just sort
The
of
highway
glancing through
goes
it.
to a separate
Yeah,
spot,
okay,
so
that's
it's just
what I
general
thought, yeah,
fund surplus that.
but that can be
this
used for
is-
both planned and unplanned,
Yeah, right.
which is
I was
wonderful.
glancing through it as you were reading through it tonight.
And to be honest, most of the capital work that needs to take place falls under the Department of the Highway,
Right.
not so
So the
much.
priority.
Exactly.
It is the
Right.
priority
Yeah,
capital
priority
projects,
Fair enough, thank you.
infrastructure, that sort of stuff.
Aye.
All in favor? Thank you.
Aye.
Everybody was loud and clear. Any opposed? No. In the documents, in the board package that Katie provided to us, she gave us our year-to-date financial reports through the third quarter of fiscal year 2016. I don't know if there were any questions or comments on
My
it.
only question is, have you had trouble opening that? In fact, I can't open those for whatever, I
Just
can open
those
Dropbox,
reports?
but I couldn't open those in a legible
Financial?
form.
It's not you, Nemrick is not very legible.
Okay.
I can't, even
It's
when you
Okay.
Zoom,
Yeah.
when
Yeah,
when I'm in the actual
Yeah.
piece of software and I zoom
Okay.
in on it, I'm like, that is no clearer than when it was just,
Okay.
it's,
It's
the
not just
quality
me.
of it is
Okay.
awful.
Okay.
It is.
no problem.
So there might be cents off sometimes, because I can't tell if a 3 or an 8 or a 5.
I will work on that.
My one comment in looking at the year-to-date is that we are using our workshop budget, like we have like $12 left. I'm exaggerating, that's not correct. But I think if we want to be considerate of other people's line items, like we want to make sure emergency management has their full amount, we just need to be cognizant of what we're spending on our own budget that we can actually control. So I think we should just talk to each other. If we're gonna think about going to a conference or doing something, we need to just make a plan before we all show up. Because we really don't have any money left in that line item. I mean, or not no money, I'm exaggerating again, but very little left.
So we have discussed that on several occasions, and Katie's developed a matrix of what the workshops are on an annual basis, and we have asked people to identify, we should identify for whom those workshops are appropriate, or who can go and bring back information so that we do try to save money.
Yeah.
So,
And I just think we should, if we're gonna make everyone else stick to a budget, we should sort of lead by example and make sure we don't overspend our own budgets.
thank you. Next on the agenda is the warrants, the payroll and the expense warrants. Is there a motion?
I would like to make the following motion that we pay payroll week ending 4/30 of 16 for $6,060.90. Payroll for week ending 4/10/16 for $9,332.50. Expense warrant number 1619 for $25,254.41 for a grand total of expenses $40,634.81. Significant invoices, just to let everyone know, is Sosophinos for gravel due to what little bit of mud season we had, thank goodness.
They ain't over yet.
And the US bank bond interest for the fire department and the water line.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nah,
Who seconded, Gabby?
you don't want me to say nay all night,
I wanted,
Nay on paying
Affirmative.
people?
so
Harsh, man.
for communications, we have 3.
There's a wastewater permit for a replacement of a system on Wild Turkey Road. Vermont League of Cities and Towns, passive, they sent a detailed loss report. I'm not making it public because it contains sensitive information, but it's all the files that were claimed in the last couple of years. Actually more than that, because it included to 2011 when we had a large one. And Vermont League of Cities and Towns news for April 2016. That's it.
so moved.
Would you elaborate on that motion?
Pardon?
Would you elaborate on that motion?
Make a motion to
To
adjourn.
adjourn.
Thank you. Are you seconding?
I would like to second the motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
You wanna stay?